What Did I Say with Dan Rothenberg.
Hello and welcome to the show. I have with me a colleague and friend, Amber Liechty. Now you might recognize her from a past episode on ADHD, which you were really amazing, and we got a lot of positive reviews
thank you.
from. Now I accidentally introduced her as Amber Hennon before, and that's my bad. That was kind of from another life.
Another life.
And now
Another
we
chapter.
got to get into that. The point is, look, things happen, names change. It's Liechty, okay?
That's right.
Amber Liechty. We're going to talk about your new exciting practice at the end of the episode. And now let's get right to it. Porn. Yeah. When I was a teenager, it was much less accessible. It was on a VHS tape. I was thinking
VHS.
this.
Yeah.
Forgetting even the fact that it's there's so much more of this material, and I mean, I think we could say it's more developmentally damaging.
It's evolved quite a bit.
Yeah. Even just the logistics of it.
Mm-hmm.
Before, when I was 16 years old, you would have to find someone with a VHS player, a VCR. Their parents weren't home. Everyone had to go over the location. We used to have like locations. Remember that, where you would go somewhere in order to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it used to be, and it was moralized back then. It was more of a that's dirty, or you're too young for that.
Yeah.
Now,
or the Playboy in this black sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
That would be shipped, right? And then you couldn't see it. It came in the black sleeve with just the address shipped to the house.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Playboy. Whatever. You were brought up the way you were. I'm from the Midwest. Okay.
No one got. Well,
no,
if you saw a black
Playboy
thing in the mail,
it rings
Dad
a bell.
might have.
Yeah, it rings a bell. Now that you mention it, I got something to bring up in therapy. But
things have changed.
Yes, absolutely. Things have changed, and so let's start with this. What damage is porn doing? What's the concern?
Well, what we're seeing, there's been a couple of great studies in 2018, 2021 around the impacts of pornography with teenagers, particularly with male-identified kids. We are seeing more aggression, which might not be surprising in terms of consuming porn. For female-identified teens, we are seeing low self-esteem, low body
more
image.
More aggression in the content, power, using more aggression amongst males.
We are seeing the kid that's consuming the porn acting more aggressively, both just like with friends, with family, but also sexually. So that's one thing that we're noticing. The other is with female-identified teens. What we noticed with pornography, and this was I believe in a 2018 study, that they, of course, struggle with self-esteem, social comparison with the other female presenting characters in pornography. They develop a increasing lower body image. And they also see increase of anxiety and depression as a result of the teens that consume it. The other thing that they noticed, regardless of identification gender-wise, is that teens that struggle with anxiety and depression tend to consume porn more. Mm-hmm. And then they also noticed an uptick with COVID just because of boredom. So teens are seeking out pornography for various reasons, oftentimes curiosity, just what is this about? What's out there? They don't want to feel left out from their peers. Mm-hmm. So they want to feel like they know what's going on. They also are at a time when they're like just sexually more excitable. And of course their hormones, blah, 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 stuff that we already know. And so they're looking to porn for direction and information. And then the unfortunate like byproduct of it is, of course, they don't know the cultural implications of it. They don't understand that there's a history behind showing assaultive pornography towards female identified characters. They don't understand that that's not what sex is or what it looks like, because they're likely not consuming realistic pornography. And so they're just getting this mixed message in addition to it impacting their body image, et cetera, et cetera. I do believe that there is a way that consuming pornography there's a way where I think teens can do it and not have that impact it, because we're not going to be able to, they're getting through parental locks. They're going to be able to see it. Mm-hmm. So yes. There is an answer to this, but these are the primary kind of issues with it is, then we look kind of a little bit more long-term, of course, it impacts their sex life. It impacts, especially with penis owners, if they're gripping their penis too tight, over time, that can lead to sensitivity loss when they're actually having real sex in real life. So a lot of these impacts they're just not talked about. And so the teens are kind of walking in blind, and I think parents and educators are nervous to broach the topic. Yeah. So they're just kind of on their own with this.
You know, what you're saying is so it's like self-esteem loss on steroids, or aggression on steroids. Mm-hmm. It's kind of, I mean, everything probably most of us don't want for our kids, really just right there. And in addition, this is how a lot of young people are learning about sex.
Yes.
Like this is, so you're watching, young people are watching porn, and this is how it should be. So you have the images, body images that are unrealistic. Mm-hmm. You have a certain, I read an interesting little excerpt on porn that said, I never thought of it this way. It said, pornography is almost always between two people that have not met each other and will not meet again.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And so, I mean, how does that affect a young person's ability to form relationships?
I think even as adults, we don't pause to consider that.
Right. Right.
And so it's going to impact them, of course, because we are in the age of consent and post-2016, Me Too, and the effects of that, which is there's enough fear now to involve consent, and that basically amongst teenagers, you are considered a jerk if you don't involve consent in some way. So that's great. But then it's a conflicting message then when you see pornography, because most doesn't involve consent. They don't show it. They don't show what consent looks like.
In fact, it can even be the attraction to it. When you're talking about like aggressive pornography, that probably intentionally doesn't involve consent.
Yes, exactly.
So that's what kids are taking in. So even if we're thinking progressively and giving these positive messages, porn is going right to the center of the brain.
Yeah, we're very visual creatures, and so we can the information that they're maybe getting in sex education or at school is ask for consent, right? Yeah. Like, make sure that everyone's on board. Like, don't take a yes, like take a yes, like take a whatever.
Right.
But then if you give them then a visual, and if we collectively, if society is giving them this visual through porn, that is these people that, again, haven't met, you're not seeing them have a conversation about consent. So they also don't have the modeling. Yeah. They have no idea what it looks like. And they're not going to do what maybe parents or educators are modeling for them, which is, excuse me, I would like you to wear a condom and not touch and not take off my top, and like that doesn't sound cool, and so they're not going to buy into it. They're going to be like, okay, losers, like I won't be saying that. So they don't have a middle ground. They have extreme with porn, and then they have I think that you should probably get tested for STDs.
Good idea. Let's go to the clinic now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's right.
I hate to put it.
Let's hop in the car and drive to Planned Parenthood.
Yeah. Isn't this sexy?
Yeah, I'm having a great time. Yeah. They just don't want to be losers, and I get it.
Amber, you really are gifted. I don't mean to get schmaltzy. You lay it down. You cut to the chase of what's real. What messages are kids really going to take in? Yes, kids need to be cool or need to feel.
That hasn't
feel
changed.
Vital.
That hasn't changed.
Yeah. So it sounds like schools are still behind the 8 ball. Schools are still.
They're trying, they're trying to support. What's really cool is a couple days ago, I was able to give some talks at Lincoln High School about sexual pleasure and consent, and Lincoln welcomed me in. So I think that there are high schools, at least in the Portland area, that are open to this. And they have clubs. There was really cool clubs. Most of the sex clubs, most of the sexually specific clubs are around consent. And in Lincoln High School, they have a club called Safer, which is kind of a support space for people that have experienced rape, unfortunately. But these groups are about assault. They're about the negative things about sex, and there's no direction of sex in general is good. Why do we have it as humans? Because it feels good, right? And then secondary stuff might be that it alleviates migraines. It lowers your cortisol levels. It aligns your central nervous system. There's so many benefits to having an orgasm, whether it's with somebody else or masturbatory. But there's no direction. It's just kind of wing it, figure it out. And while I think that would be great in a fantasy world, there's too many conflicting messages that will encourage kids to go in a direction that is harmful. Like, we're trying to prevent harm, but
we have no alternative to the harmful option.
Yes. We're focusing on what we don't want. But then as a result, then we're not saying, this is actually what you do want. This is what it looks like.
And it's always been that way. Kids are always going to gravitate to something that seems exciting. And it was when I was a kid. And the problem is it's just gotten more damaging. Yeah,
because there's too much information.
Playboy off the hook or
well, they're done
judge
now,
them.
Right? Like Playboy was like, all right, fair enough. We're like, we don't want to do this anymore. Sorry.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. They stopped the magazine. Playboy like switched some things up. I mean, they're probably still, who knows what shenanigans they're doing.
How am I going to learn about my stereo now? Forget it. All right.
I get it for the ads or for the articles. No. Yeah.
Okay. And so what might be a way as parents, before we get into what do I do when I find out my kid is watching porn, how can we create an environment where they might not seek out porn or mitigate the damage?
Yeah, so they're gonna seek it out. So there's nothing you can do there. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, there's not really like an answer there, but I think that this starts with you as a parent reflecting on your own sexuality and yourself, right? So if you can pause for a moment now and think about your development sexually, what you learned, the mishaps along the way. Did you potentially, you can reflect back, and it's painful for you to think about, there was a chance that I probably didn't ask for consent at some point. There was probably a chance when I didn't, know how to please a partner. There was a chance when I, maybe continued to explore myself sexually only with porn, and I never made sure that I did it off screen and just like on my own with my own imagination. So that's your own sexual relationship.
So we should think about our own.
Think about your own, where you at.
Lives, so we can sort of get honest.
So you can get honest.
Right. If we're denying, if we've put all that in a compartment, we can't really help our kids.
No, and I think the biggest reason why is because your kids need a model. So you're not having sex in front of them, obviously. But one of the most common things that I notice in my adult clients is when they are struggling sexually, across the board, it's, well, I never really saw my parents be affectionate. I never saw, like, oh, did you have two parents in the home? Yes. Or my mom dated or my dad dated or whatever. But I never saw them hug. I never saw what healthy platonic touch looks like. is this is what it looks like to hug and to touch the arm and to like, even like caress the face in a way. This is what two adults can do platonically just to show love in a healthy way and do it consistently. So if you're not doing that, that's your own thing to like reflect on. Do I need a relationship therapist, et cetera, for your own relationship?
So role model the good for our kids if you want to prevent the quote unquote bad. Yeah,
because then they get in hot water as adults in their relationship because they're not affectionate or they are only focused on affection when the lights turn off and they're in the bed. And that's not how everybody's libido works across the gender spectrum. So that's not going to benefit them, right? The other thing is get comfortable with talking about sex daily. Your kids are thinking about this every day, multiple times a day, guaranteed. Can't be peppered in. Let's have the talk. Think about how you refer to a penis or a vagina or a vulva or a clitoris and get comfortable with that language because it's happening at school and they're uncomfortable. It's happening in private spaces in a car where then we expect our kids to not only ask for consent, but we expect the person that's receiving that permission to be able to say, no, I don't want you to touch my vagina. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I want you to really think long and hard. Can my kids say that? Are they able to right now, through fear and like nervousness, say, I actually don't want you to touch my breasts, my tits, whatever they say.
Yeah.
And so if you're uncomfortable with this conversation, think about how much more uncomfortable your child is when they are sexually exploring. And then you're basically you're comforting yourself. Like, I'm sorry to be harsh. You're choosing your own comfort over your kids because it's uncomfortable for you to talk about sex. But the reality is your kid is either going to be asexual, which is a small percentage of the population, or they're going to be sexual. And at some point, they're going to have to figure out how to have this come out of their mouth and say, no, I don't want this. Yes, I do want this.
Okay. And so one way or the other, try to facilitate dialogue about it.
Yes.
And I mean, what you said, getting specific. I don't want you to touch my breasts. I don't want you to touch my vagina. I do not want you to touch my penis. Is that important to, get specific about it? Talk about exact situations that could happen as opposed to what do most of us do? Say no, don't do anything you don't want to do. And we just sort of leave it general.
Right. And it's just, I get that. And this is why, I mean, honestly, this is why two things. I think that my perspective is helpful because I'm not a parent. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not a parent, I'm not being driven by fear. Mm-hmm. I'm being driven by what I see in my practice when I treat teenagers. Right. So when I am treating them and I hear what their struggles are, this is what's hitting it, is by being able to be comfortable with it. So an example from my childhood, right? Mm-hmm. My brother we talked about sex so comfortably in our family that my brother would come home from a party and he would say, my mom would be like, how was the party? Oh, like so-and-so from the football team, I guess, like was trying to get laid upstairs and blah, blah, blah. And then I went, and like, I don't know. I think I was able to get some head or whatever. My mom's like, oh, Ryan, what I like, I'll say. But then she would have an opening to a conversation of, I wonder if that, fellow football player asked for consent, who had condoms there. Right. Like you have an opening to it. And, did you have a good time? Mm-hmm. Was she feeling okay? Do you think that these people were feeling safe? Like, you're not going to have that opening if you don't start to feel comfortable about the message.
Because they're doing it anyway.
They're doing it anyway.
And it's the message over. Unless we want to try to lock our kids down, and if you want to talk about what I hear in my practice that doesn't work. The I don't trust you, I'm going to monitor you, doesn't work, and the kids win.
Thank God.
You think it's true. You think they're listening. You're looking at their texts. Those texts are intentional. They're on Discord. They're always a step ahead of us.
Yeah.
And so I think I felt my own parental fear kind of go up.
Yes.
When you said that, I think the fear was, well, then I'm am I enabling or am I allowing irresponsible behavior by having a conversation about it, having a casual conversation about it?
Right. And I am happy to like disclose my own experiences as a result of being in a more like sexually open household in terms of talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
None of myself and my siblings did not have actual sex until college.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think
Right.
the ability, and this includes drugs too, right? So like talking about anything where it's just so open that it's not this like, ooh, like sneaky, exciting thing.
Right.
It takes the wind out of the sails. It basically is like, this is a thing that you'll do at some point. You'll know when you feel super safe, and you'll know that it's the time when you feel safe. You feel like, you know, you're not afraid. You feel like it's somebody that has your best interest in mind, that you care about, etc. Whatever the parameters you want to set for your kids, that's fine. You can do that. But if you're avoiding it, they are not.
Yeah.
They won't. Because this is just humans. I mean, just because we set laws doesn't mean that sexuality then gets taken out of a human animal. This is when those hormones peak. So I would say, like with pornography, right? It's if you see it this way, and especially when we look at our trans kids and any of our kids that are LGBTQ, the only resource that they tend to have for sex is porn. Like most sexual experiences in movies, whatever. I mean, we're getting better, but our is a female presenting and a male presenting person interacting,
right. And that's where we learn. That's where we learn what life is all about. Looking at our parents, looking at movies, looking at television, YouTube, whatever. Right. When I was, I remember in the 90s, late night, whatever. There was no men kissing men.
No.
Unless you went to,
porn.
Yeah, porn, or like a gay movie at the
like
at
a
the Castro
specific
Theater.
Right.
Yeah.
You had to really seek it out. And so for this is all you have. And these kids are hungry for knowledge. They're curious. So if you take the word sex off, if this is helpful, and you just go to, you go to just the child's mind, it's going to be curious. And what happens now is they stay curious, and they've now applied it to something that makes them feel good. And if you then, so they take their curiosity, they put it on something that makes them feel good, and now they're in this place of, is this good or bad? Well, because no one talks about it, and because it seems kind of taboo still, and it's like kind of hidden, they are now linking this with bad. Now I'm going to keep it secretive. And if you shine the light on anything, it's going to help, get the cobwebs out.
That's the message. We can all have our own style.
Yeah.
But take the weight off. Be available.
Yes, be available.
Even if your kid doesn't want to talk about it. I mean, that's going to happen a lot.
Yeah,
like,
there's gonna.
About sex.
Yeah, if you're their parents, like it might be kind of weird,
right?
But
and then maybe not even push it.
No, don't push it.
Be
Yeah, and just like the amount of even just things like bodily fluids. The amount of kids that don't know about semen and the moisture in a vagina, and that a vagina is a self-cleaning thing. So they're putting soap up there, and now they're getting infections. Like, our kids don't even know their parts.
Right.
They don't even know where their holes are. And they're getting to 17, they're about to leave your house. They're about to leave your house into a world of college, maybe, or whatever, where they don't have the information that's actually going to protect them because they don't have the language. Now, I will say that you can only go so far as a parent, right? Because they see you as their parent.
Yeah.
Which is why there are therapists like me and other people that have training in sex therapy to be able to take the baton and support you in that, so that if it's uncomfortable, we can teach them things as well. and it really works. Find Amber.
Seriously.
I've got openings, and I got a great class for it. But I'll say
she's amazing, because there are a lot of areas our kids don't need us, and I say that with the parent hat on. There's a great asset to having an adult that is not parent
that you trust. Yeah, that's like if you like, and it's like, do I have an aunt or an uncle or some sort of like older cousin that I can trust? Like, yeah, maybe, but it's nice to have someone that's like not your friend or family. Mm-hmm. That's like, I'm just going to teach you the basics of. It's like a great example is at this Lincoln High School talk, I was just showing them the difference between having a small posture mm-hmm. and saying, hey, like, the only way that I'm going to have sex is if you put on a condom. And so if you hope that, and then I just made them do all this and say that. And then I made them open up their posture and say, mm-hmm. I'd really, actually, the only way that I allow anyone to touch my body is if a condom is involved. But it's, mm-hmm. If not, that's fine. We can just hang out on the bed and watch TikTok and just keep our clothes on. Yeah. Mic drop. And just this modeling, they're like, oh my God, this is so helpful. Because the only message they're getting is, hello, would you like to proceed during sex? Is this okay? Is this okay? Is this okay? Right. Like, that's just not how it is in practicality.
Yeah, you're going to be too old to begin with to give this advice to your kids. That you don't want to, by the nature of that you had them.
Things have changed.
Yeah, things have changed.
Oh, yeah.
Getting a professional, a therapist, coach, someone who is, even just younger.
And to tone down the like, also I like to hit on the body image piece with it, is if you're sexually exploring, there's no way that it's not going to hit on potential body image issues. And so can you tag team both and say, this experience, hopefully your sexual experience started with yourself, if you were fortunate enough, and it didn't involve somebody else. And as you're growing, you should still keep a sexual relationship with yourself. Mm-hmm. And what are we talking about? We're talking about masturbation. And is there a way to encourage your kids, if they're using porn, to make sure that, number one, they know what it means when it's tiptoeing into addiction territory? Mm-hmm. So porn addiction territory would be like, they're not socializing with the family or friends. Uh-huh. Like, it gets in the way. It's that
taking
much.
The play. It's a little bit like alcoholism.
Oh, yeah.
Like, are you drinking alone? Are you spending more time alone than with people? Right.
And so I would start with that. I wouldn't like linger on the fear stuff with porn. What I would do is lacing into your conversations at the dinner table stuff about our culture. Not only are these paid actors who are paid to look like they're having a good time, mm-hmm. even if they're not. Yeah. But also talk about, why is it that a lot of themes of porn are still about physically assaulting a female identified or female appearing person? Right. Right. And how does that fold into culture? And introduce them to Gloria Steinem, throw in like feminism in it and what that looks like, and how much, do women get paid in the world? Why are there still porn actors? And this will take the wind out of the sails of porn. And if you want a really good...
I mean, I don't even mean to interrupt you.
No, yeah.
But you just hit on another avenue to get through.
To chat.
To our kids.
Yeah.
Especially because I've worked in high schools lately. They're talking about power dynamics and sex and gender and sexuality.
The kids are already there, yeah. So they would love if you show that you're like kind of woke and that you can talk about this stuff.
Yeah, and find a way that they might want to tell you they know better than you.
Yes, oh my God, what an opportunity to learn.
Get them going on how much they know.
Yes, teach me.
And then you're talking to them.
Yes, and they love to teach.
Tell them. As parents, we feel like I got to tell you how this is, especially with something like porn or sex. I got to tell you how it is. Right. No, talk to them.
Yeah, just conversation. Totally. Ask them, what do you know about this topic of mm-hmm. like assault towards like female presenting people, and what do they have they hit on this in like your history class about whatever with treatment of females, and how does this play out then in porn? Why is everybody like seeking this out still in terms of power dynamics and control, etc.? And there's a really great, I don't know if I would like throw teens on this, though. You can be the judge as a parent, but there's a really great documentary called The Price of Pleasure. Mm. When it first came out, it was called Porn 101, and they put it at all the colleges mm-hmm. and made it free. and you could go into the auditorium and watch. Everyone's like, "Oh, Porn 101, of course I'll be there," and they showed up. This documentary is about like the impacts of porn. This is made probably 15 years ago, still very relevant, and it shows adults as well the impact on their relationships with pornography, whatever. But just a really helpful documentary to kind of dip your toes in. There is it sounds kind of like scary, but I believe it's called missingkids.org is an excellent resource. And underneath that, there are two, and I can have Dan put it in the links below. These great kind of like educational tools for online safety. And so, of course, we want to teach that as well, is that you can teach your kids terms like grooming. There are people online that are really trying to groom children to trust them so that you can meet up with them, et cetera, et cetera. And here's things to look out for. I don't want to scare you. I just want to be realistic. And I would encourage that. I don't want you to be afraid. I just want us to like be realistic that like not everyone has good intentions. And grooming looks like this, right? They're going to flatter you, make you feel good. They're going to hit on all the sensitivities that a teenager might have. And so this link might help give you some education on like how to encourage online safety, I would say, while your kids are messing around.
And as parents, what should we do? We find our kids are watching porn. If it's, they probably are.
Yep.
How do we manage it? How do we control it? What do we do?
So if you walk in on them, you can say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Let's chat when you're done." Whatever.
Okay. So begin with, doing your best not to shame them.
100%. Right. Okay. So the difference would be like oh, Cheyenne, I can't believe, that, oh my, or whatever. Right. Or like, oh, Daniel, I guess I'm just really surprised that this, but okay. Like I would watch that. Reserve your reaction. They don't need it. It's not necessary. That's great. You have a reaction. This is one of those parenting moments where you got to stuff it down, even though you're like, oh my God, freaking out inside. And then when you have the conversation with them, I would just say, hey, you're clearly like going in a sexual exploration direction, and we should chat about this. And more often, like, this is super exciting. Sex is good. Having an orgasm is good, right? Here's all the benefits. I would start with like, this is why our bodies are sexual, if you're ever stressed out, like this is something that you can use as a tool. If you're struggling with insomnia because of your anxiety, because you're a teenager in 2023, like that could be helped with an orgasm, whatever, right? Then you can go to, I also want to impress upon the fact that the things that you're seeing online are paid actors, and these people are paid to look, a certain way, act a certain way, and look like they're having a good time.
And what's and I'm kind of role playing the kid. So what's the problem with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the issue with that is that it is in no way realistically how sex actually happens. It's way more like oftentimes like clumsy or awkward or uncomfortable. And it's not portraying what actually is going to feel good for your partner. It is going to lead you astray to what you might think someone might like. And there's just a lot of implications for you as a kid. However, you're probably still going to watch porn, and there are sites that are not great, and there are ones that actually show consent.
Oh, okay. And Tell us about, so there's better options. There's
better options, and then this is kind of course up to you, because so in the UK they're playing with this idea. They're actually playing with this idea in Tennessee, crazy enough, about not only teaching kids about masturbation at 5 years old, like starting at a young age of like, this is healthy for you, encouraging more fantasy up in the mind than having to need a visual, like needing like video, and that across the board, Pornhub. I would just use the terms Pornhub because it's free, it's accessible, it's super easy. The guarantee that's probably where they're going, and it's the most damaging.
Is that what? So that's a site.
That's
Pornhub?
a site. So Pornhub is like every sexual act you could think of to the max is available on Pornhub. And it's rarely, I would doubt that you would ever find a scene that shows consent. Now, the contrary to that would be a site like Bellessa. Bellessa, yeah. I believe it's Bellessa. And Bellessa shows consent at the start. So while it is actors, it continues, it films them from the start of them meeting each other, them talking about their plan, what they're going to do. They talk about what they're okay with and what they're not. And then they go into it. It's created mostly by people that are not cisgendered men, basically.
Okay.
So there's a lot more consent. There's a lot more like affection. There's romance, not all of it, but there's a lot more like lighthearted stuff in terms of instruction. There's a lot more like accurate sexual scenes of like, yes, this is something that like a vulva owner would actually enjoy versus, thinking fast and quick and all of these other things, right? That are myths that unfortunately, like as a teenager, you don't know are wrong. Like you just think that's probably how it's supposed to be.
And you're not going to think it's wrong because in the moment it's pleasurable and it's exciting.
Yeah, you're just seeing two naked people do stuff.
Yeah.
If you see two naked people and they seem excited, that's probably going to get you off until you get older and realize that maybe that's just not reality or how things are. So
right. And a lot of the depression can come later.
Yeah, because
difficulty
you're not
with relationships.
Yes.
We just have not learned any type of intimacy other than what you're seeing, which is again two strangers.
Yes.
That will not see each other again.
Right.
I mean, it's in a way it's as simple as that. That's the relationship you're learning through porn.
Right. So we don't want our kids to do that, and yet we are struggling to talk about it, and we're tiptoeing in this area constantly of like, well, it's all like fear inside of you. But if you think about yourself as an adult, as you go into adulthood, likely the most consistent place where you can be in like a playful sort of sandbox area is going to be in your sexual experiences. If you learn to have a healthy relationship with it. And if you don't, then you don't get access to this natural dopamine and serotonin. It's like you have a natural antidepressant in you.
Yeah.
That you can't access.
Right. Tell me if this is, in the beginning, it feels like you can access it, but eventually it's like doing cocaine. You build a tolerance, and you can't reach it anymore. And like, showing like non-goal oriented sex, right? Just playfulness and like laughter. Like we don't see that in porn, right? Like things are going to be clumsy and you might accidentally elbow somebody. And how are you able to, especially for this male aggression piece, right? How are you encouraging your male sons to be able to not have that aggression, to be able to laugh it off, to like, how are they controlling their ego in that space that's so fragile and vulnerable? Like, are they, some mishap happens or they're overwhelmed and they're not able to get hard or whatever, and they turn towards anger. That's very common. How are we training that out of our boys? Right. How are we making sure that they know that in that moment, they have to learn how to get into a humorous place of, whoops, well, sometimes things happen. Right.
And if they go to this like,
performance anxiety, I'm not a man anymore.
Yeah, and pouting, and now like whoever their partner is that's with them is like, oh no, like now I'm nervous, I'm frozen, I don't know what to do because this person is angry. Are they angry at me? And we don't want that to be your son, right? But how do we make sure that he doesn't do that?
Amber, this has been amazing.
I could talk about this. I love this. I think that it's so crucial, right? It's so important.
It is. And I hate to tell you this. Now we're going to have you back. We got a discussion on consent.
Consent. Yes. Body image.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're stuck.
And we're back. If you would like to connect with Amber about working with your teenager, You can find her at deepspacepdx.com. That's DEEPSPACEPDX.com. I sure would want her teaching skills and educating my teenager. Now, a couple of quick takeaways. I want to make sure that any of you that heard that discussion, because it's so filled with good information, don't get alienated at all. For instance, I'm 50 years old. Amber is 37 years old. She's a little more connected to today's way of approaching sex and for me, I was not talking about sex at the dinner table. And the point is that you can find your own style, find your own way to do it. The bottom line is, let's try to discuss sex enough to give it a little air, to take away the power, to let our kids know that they can come to us, that there's, it's not just sex or no sex, that there are sexual acts in between. And again, those are tough discussions. Like Amber clearly was brought up in a very open household. We don't have to exactly emulate that, talking about it at the dinner table if that doesn't make you comfortable, but be available for them to talk about it. And I know, as a parent, my first thought is, well, Amber, they're going to be like, dude, no way, I don't want to talk about it. You're still letting them know that you can talk about it. You're letting them know that you're not judging them. And again, what does this have to do with porn? Two things. First of all, we want to be able to educate ourselves so they don't educate themselves with porn, because in a lot of cases, that's what's available. That's how young people learn about sex. Also, and this is the lesson, I don't know about you, I just learn every time I have an episode of this podcast. We kind of don't want there's always a road we don't want our kids to go down. And in order to prevent that, it's not just about telling them not to go down it. It's about role modeling something else. Obviously, we're not talking about role modeling sex, role modeling intimacy with our partners, role modeling talking. Again, role modeling discussion about sexual parts, penis, vagina. See, I almost lost eye contact with you. I'm embarrassed. Takes practice, but we can do it. Connect with our kids. And finally, Amber and I might have been hyperbolizing a little bit about your kids definitely watching porn and you can't stop them. Not necessarily. If your kid is younger and you're using some parental controls, that's fine. Your kid's not, you shouldn't go out and start snooping around. That's counterproductive. The point is, if they want to, they're probably going to, and we don't want to put all our eggs in a control basket. I've worked with many young people, and it's just my experience. It doesn't work to try to just lock them in a cage and take away their phone, and they will find a way, or we will push them so far away that we will lose them anyway. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, Amber Liechty. Okay, I'm still working on it. Amber Liechty, no longer Amber Hennon. You are the greatest. Tune in, because we're going to talk about consent. She is such a gold mine of information. We'll see you next time on What Did I Say?